If you listen closely, you can still hear the sounds of the past. At Backbone Food Farm in Garrett County, Max Dubansky, along with his 19-year-old daughter Grace, is using equine-fueled agriculture to cultivate crops on his 100-acre farm in Oakland.
A horse doesn't run on petroleum, they run on grass. That always appeals to me, that you can raise their fuel. And what comes out the other side isn't carbon dioxide, it's compost.
The Dubanskys have been farming for 20 years, applying traditional methods and implementing new innovations when needed. While Max feels in tune with nature, working the fields with Willis, sometimes horsepower isn't enough.
We farm 50 acres altogether, so in the past we've farmed pretty much exclusively with horses, but found that we couldn't get all the work done in time. So now we mix it up. We use tractors and horses.
But harvesting mushrooms doesn't require either one. Have you ever wondered how they grow mushrooms on a farm? Well, I found out, and it's fascinating. Come on, take a look. These tubular-shaped structures could easily be mistaken for punching bags, but take a closer look.
We turn a $3 bale of straw into a lot of mushrooms.
In this controlled environment, Max is able to grow portobello and oyster mushrooms year-round.
Oyster mushrooms are the easiest mushroom to cultivate. There's a lot of room for mistakes and stuff like that. There's at least 70 or 80 different subspecies of oyster mushrooms.
It all starts with a bag of pasteurized straw that's been inoculated with rye grain mycelium.
This is actually the oyster mycelium that's run through the straw. And once it feeds through all the straw, then it wants to reproduce.
Mycelium is a thread-like growth of fungus. It's the base for producing mushrooms.
So this is straw that we just inoculated about 3 days ago. And you can easily see here in this bag, this is 1 grain of rye. And now you can see the mycelium is jumping off of that rye grain. You can see the threads coming off of here.
And in about a week, the straw is fully myceliated, which means it's ready to produce mushrooms.
This is a cluster of baby oysters that just came out this morning. This cluster is about 2 or 3 hours old right now.
A baby oyster mushroom is called a primordial, also referred to as a pin. This stage doesn't last long. Tomorrow, this cluster will start taking shape, and by day 4, it reaches peak maturity.
The edge of the mushroom should be just slightly incurled,
which means it's ready to be picked. Today, Max's younger daughters, Iris and Tesha, help him with the harvest.
And just be gentle with them. You guys are doing a good job. Once we pick this mushroom off, we haven't disturbed the mycelium in the bag at all. In another week, it's going to pop out another cluster of mushrooms right out of that same hole. It'll do that about 4 times. Basically, it'll produce mushroom until it consumes all the nutrients in the straw.
Oyster and portobello aren't the only type of mushrooms Max grows.
We also grow shiitake mushrooms, and we grow those outdoors on logs. And we also grow a couple other varieties on wood chips outdoors. So we drill 30 to 40 holes per log, and in each hole we put the Shiitake Mycelium. It's the Shiitake Mycelium growing on sawdust.
After a year, the logs are myceliated.
The white you see at the end of the logs here, this is actually the Shiitake Mycelium shooting out of the end of the log, telling us that this log is now fully inoculated.
Next, they're soaked in water for 24 hours, and now they're ready to produce mushrooms.
We get about 150 to 200 pounds of shiitakes a week, about 100 pounds of oysters, and maybe 25, 30 pounds of portobellos.
The Dubanskys' mushrooms sell out every week at the farmer's market. What draws the customers in? The eye-catching golden oysters.
The tropical species, the warm weather ones, tend to be really delicate compared to the grays, but full of flavor. They just look really cool, too, on the market table.
Now, what did you whip up for me today?
Today, I made a cream cheese mushroom spread for you. Some basic ingredients, shallots and garlic, and I used portobello, shiitake, and oyster, and some herbs, and some cream cheese and butter, and then just pureed it.
You know, I've heard that mushrooms can be really, really nutritious. Is that true?
It is true. A lot of people don't realize that Mushrooms have equal to greater protein than legumes. And they also are one of the only things that has vitamin D readily available.
And I got to tell you, they have a lot of flavor. This is really, really
Good,
good.
I do
Very,
like it.
very tangy. We're going to put this recipe and some others on our website at mpt.org/farm. You can try it at home. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And for the local buy, I'm Al Spoler.